was brought up a few times in the chat, and I remember it well, that Lincoln Riley, obviously, in the opener against Tulane last year as coach of Oklahoma, went up against Michael Pratt and the Green Wave. And Michael Pratt dove and almost made a fourth down conversion around the 45-yard line that would have made things extremely nervous and interesting late in the game. But Oklahoma made that stop in a game that they had well in hand, but turned into a 40-35 white knuckler against a Green Wave team that typically was winning, having posting those 7-6 kind of seasons with a bowl trip, and then they capsized at 2-10, but we didn't know it at that time. That was week 1, so not a very good Green Wave team last season. But Oklahoma barely survived that one.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna be a plot point in the lead up to this. That what happened in that Oklahoma Tulane game last year. Yeah, I mean, and hey, Willie Fritz, just briefly, this is coaching carousel season. Of course, we had the insane Scott Satterfield to Cincinnati story. I mean, that is just absolutely hilarious. That one coach of one team goes to another school, which he happens to be playing in a bowl game. And a couple extra special touches on this. At Fenway Park for that Fenway Bowl with Cincinnati and Louisville, the two teams are going to have to share the same sideline. When you have a bowl game played in a baseball stadium, this was true for the Emerald Bowl that you had in the San Francisco Giants Park.
Absolutely.
Two teams had to share a sideline in that layout. It's going to be the same at Fenway Park. So Scott Satterfield coaches this game for Cincinnati against the team he just left, Louisville. He's going to just be a few yards away from his Louisville players and assistant coaches. So I find that absolutely hilarious. It's absolutely amazing bowl storyline. But just, in terms of the coaching carousel, what if Power 5 athletic directors been doing all these years, not snapping up Willie Fritz? We've kept saying it. When there's an opening, I mean, we saw this with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech wouldn't go for Willie Fritz. And we've seen other programs, the lower tier of the Power 5, that kind of program. They've had chances to get Willie Fritz. They wouldn't go for him. And Tulane is just saying, thank you. We have our first big New Year's Day bowl game in over 80 years. You have to go back to the 1940 Sugar Bowl when Tulane played Texas A&M. That's the last time that Tulane had a top-tier bowl appearance. And while we're on that subject, Tulane and USC met in the 1932 Rose Bowl. USC won 21-12. Tulane's coach back then was a guy named Bernie Bierman. And for college football historians, Bernie Bierman, after going to Tulane, he won 5 national championships with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They were the dynastic power in the 1930s. So there's more bowl history with Tulane than you might think, and it's certainly it's not a lengthy history, but just in terms of the moments that Tulane has had, the Green Wave had some special moments. And of course, they were an SEC program for over 30 years, from 1933 to 1965. That's something younger fans might not be aware of. But just to kind of just draw this circle with Willie Fritz, that Power 5 ADs had a chance to get him over and over and over again. They wouldn't go for him. And now here's Willie Fritz's crowning moment, and he gets his big moment in the spotlight against USC in the Cotton Bowl.
My first remembrance of Tulane was playing a Liberty Bowl game against Penn State, a 9-6 game, I believe, in 1979. And then, of course, I think their last dip into greatness was, of course, with Sean King in 1998 as an undefeated team.
The Tommy
that defeated BYU.
Yep. And in terms of that that bowl game against Penn State in the late 70s, you said 1979.
I believe it was 79.
Well, assuming it was, Larry Smith, who coached USC to 3 straight Rose Bowls in the late 1980s, before he went to the University of Arizona, which really was his springboard to the USC job. And, he beat USC in the Coliseum as Arizona head coach. That was one of his bigger moments in Tucson. He coached at Tulane in the late 1970s before coming to Arizona. Another former Tulane coach that USC fans will know, Bob Toledo, who is the coach of the last UCLA team to win a conference championship. That was in the same 1998 season when Tulane went 12-0 under Tommy Bowden and offensive coordinator Rich Rodriguez. So some fun facts that, well, I don't know if you knew them, but if you didn't, you know them now here at the Voice of College Football.
Yes, that in fact was 1979. And of course, Penn State playing in a Liberty Bowl was not a vintage Penn State team at 7-4, taking on the Green Wave at 9-2. Yes, Larry Smith and Joe Paterno in that one.